these are assembly instructions to my advent calendar with doors. I have two options. The first option is to be cut on cardstock that measures 12 by 24 inches and requires the long Cricut mat. Because my pieces are 12 inches, they are too long to fit on the standard Cricut mat. However, I have a second option. Pieces are exactly 11.5 inches, so that's the maximum length on a regular size mat. And I have these hinge pieces to help put them together. You won't have these hinge pieces when you use the longer mat because the hinge pieces are the part that I had to cut off in order to make it fit for the regular size mat version. Basically, you just need to fold down on all the score lines. I often use my Cricut scraper just to help me fold on those score lines. So if you are doing a version on the shorter mat, the pieces look almost identical. However, you have these hinge pieces that you need to adhere to the bottom of each of the 4 panels. So I've already folded down on all the score lines for this panel, and I folded on the score line for my hinge piece. I'm going to put glue on one half of this hinge piece, like so. I have one tab here on my right hand side, and then on this lower piece, I'm just adhering that. So I'm going to attach all 4 of the hinge pieces in the same way. So now that all my tabs have been added to these 4 pieces, it's exactly the same as if I had cut it on the longer mat. I'm going to take 2 of my pieces. So I've had the tabs both on my right hand side. I'm going to put glue on the other side of that bottom tab. I'm just going to glue them together. The cut line of my piece on the right hand side is right on the score line of the tab, the piece that's on my left hand side. So next I'm folding this edge up on the second score line, and I'm just putting glue from the score line to the cut edge. And then I'm folding my piece down so that the cut edge is right on the score line of that tab. Then I'm just spreading that glue with my bone folder. If you don't have a bone folder, you can use either a ruler or you could use your Cricut scraping tool. So I'm going to do that for the second piece as well. So I'm putting glue from the score line to the edge, and then folding my piece down. I'm just popping this tab outwards like so, and then I'm just bringing my pieces together so that they form a corner. So now I'm going to do the exact same thing with the 2 other pieces. So now I have both pieces assembled. That's going to form the frame for my advent calendar. Okay, so I have my piece with the flaps upwards like so, and my second piece with the also flaps upwards. I'm just putting glue on the back of this flap, and then I'm folding it into, and you can flatten it, it helps you get it nice and straight. So I'm gluing that tab into the interior of this piece, and so then this becomes our corner. So for my last corner, I'm just placing it over that little mitered piece, and I'm slipping it in. So for this corner, just to make my life a little bit easier, I'm going to not glue it on the inside, but glue it on top. I put glue on this tab like so, and I'm just folding it over. So for the corner, you just want to make sure that your tab is nicely centered and it forms a nice 90-degree corner. It does have some play on it, but we're going to deal with that. Next, we're going to create the little grid that goes inside our box. I have 8 of these, and I'm just folding down on the score lines on the tabs on each side. I'm going to do that for all 8 of them. So my first one, I'm going to insert the 2 first squares, intertwine them like so. Then I'm going to do the same. So I'm just going to do that 4 times like so. Then I'm going to flip my piece around and then slip all my horizontal pieces through those slots the exact same way. So that forms my grid. I have 4 more pieces and they go around my grid. 2 of them have no tabs on the end. I'm just going to insert my tabs into the slots, and then I'm going to put glue on those little tabs And make sure they're properly pulled through and folded down and then glued down to that panel. Glue on the tab. Make sure it's pulled out completely and then fold it down and glue it to the perimeter. Now I'm going to take the second piece, no tabs on either end, and I'm going to do the exact same thing. I have the piece with tabs on each end. I'm just folding down on the score lines that create the tabs. And I'm going to place them the exact same way as I did with the other pieces. I'm just going to slip those remaining tabs in and then glue them down to the perimeter as well. So I'm going to do the exact same thing with the remaining side. So then I have the tabs at the four corners, making sure everything is nice and flat, and then just gluing them at the corners like so. And I'm going to do that for all four corners. Okay, so now that my grid is finished, I'm going to grab my frame piece and I'm just going to fit my grid within the frame. Because it's so tight in there, you don't really have to glue it down, but what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of glue on those perimeter pieces and just glue them to the frame. And I want to make sure that they're about 1/8 of an inch down, because then there's 1/8 of an inch at the bottom as well, so they're centered. And I'm going to do that for all four sides. I'm going to glue this frame piece on the top of my advent calendar and on the bottom, and this will make sure that my box is nice and square. I'm putting double-sided tape on the four corners. I'm releasing the backing from the double-sided tape on one of the corners, and then I'm hovering over and making sure the corner is exactly flush with the edges. Then I'm releasing the backing on a second corner, and I'm putting glue all along my frame, making sure it meets nicely. So I'm just going to continue doing that for all four corners. And now I'm going to flip my piece over, and I'm going to do this exact same thing on the back of my advent calendar as well. I'm going to grab my piece with all the little doors. Sometimes there's some little hanging chads and you have to help your little doors along to make sure that they open. So my green version is for your Explorer if you don't have the perforation tool. And my second version, the red version, is if you have the perforation tool. So I'm just folding upwards on all those score lines for all 25 doors. For my little doors that don't have the perforations that are already open, I've used the Cricut Smart Label Writable Vinyl. So I'm going to take the very last number, 25, and I am going to place it on this square so that there's an even border all the way around. So then when it's time to open the little door, you just pull this open like so. So I'm just going to stick all 25 numbers down, and then I'm taking a contrasting semicircle and just adding it inside like so, and I'm gluing it to the label. So I'm going to do that for all of those 25 doors. Alternatively, if you have the perforation tool, I've also used the Smart Label Writable Vinyl, but it has a cutout. So I'm placing my sticker down so that it hugs that semicircle. I have the contrasting piece, which I'm going to glue down just like so. So that gives you two options. So whether you have the perforation tool or you don't, you can still make this. So I'm just going to continue adding those stickers and those decorative pieces to the front of my panels. So once I've decorated my door panel, I'm going to take this decorative frame and I'm just putting glue on the back. I'm just laying it down so the edges are flush. And I'm going to take my grid piece. So I've just put glue around the whole perimeter. I'm just laying that on top. Then I'm going to flip my calendar over and then just load it up with treats. And then I'll put glue on the perimeter again and then seal it up.